Alright, we'll begin. Erev Tov. This will be for Moshe. First of all, at the end of the program, we're going to have some questions and so on. We'll finish, and then afterwards we'll daven Marav and we'll say some hymns for the people that were wounded today in the tragic attack in Yerushalayim. Right. Anyway, we're not going to repeat the sin of the Meraglim by just telling you the bad things. We're going to really focus on some of the problems, but we're going to offer solutions. Ezrat Hashem. You're going to hear tonight solutions to Israel's problem. First, let's see what's happening. Let's try to understand exactly what's happening in Israel. Well, I want to pick some highlights over the last year or so. Some of these things already have been forgotten, but they're still very much alive and well. Remember that flotilla incident, okay? So you have a tremendous amount of terrorists coming in. We know, we've all seen the internet afterwards, all the reports. And the Navy commandos, these guys are the top guys in the Israeli military by far. There's no question about it. Trained amazingly well. They go out, they identify an enemy ship, terrorists on board, and they go on board with paintball guns. Like there are games, you can shoot your barrels, and paintball. Now, what army in the world sends commandos, highly trained commandos, into a combat situation with paintball guns? We didn't do that in 67. We didn't do that in Entebbe. Then you have, a little bit before that was the Goldstone Report. Here we have an army trying to be the most humane army in the world. Last night Moshe and I attended in Manhattan. It was a gigantic dinner of friends of the IDF. And the sad part about it is you have a lot of these top generals trying to tell 1,500 people at dinner last night how humane the Israeli army is, how much we try to care for the enemy. They showed us, brought some Israeli officers that care for Arabs and everything we try to do to help them. Okay, fine and good. But the whole world, how do they see this? What was the Goldstone Report? War criminals, war crimes, horrible things. So it doesn't work. Trying to be the most humane army in the world interprets it hafuch. Another problem, Gilad Shalit. 5 years, and counting, God forbid, how long this will go on for. Everyone wants to know if Israel will attack Iran. So when they ask me my opinion, I say, attack Iran? We can't bring home a guy who's across the street. He's in our country. He's somewhere in Gaza. I can't believe we don't know where he is. I'm not privy to any information, but I would imagine we know pachot yoter where he is. How come we can't bring this guy home? So you're worried about Ahmadinejad? Why can't, again, in 1976, we flew many miles into a foreign country to save hostages in a hostage situation. You remember how you felt after Entebbe? We can't bring this young fellow home? That it was the settlement freeze, first time in Jewish history, where Jews could not build in their own land. And we're talking about a Palestinian state. Things that we never discussed ever. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on. So first of all, it's sad to think, but the Israel that we're giving our children is not the Israel that we got from our parents. Just a few years ago, when you mentioned the Israeli army, there was pride, tough, strong. And today, it seems to be the opposite. So, trying to figure out what happened. Why? What happened? What's going on? So first, let's try to understand what's not the problem. The number one person in the world that gets blamed for these problems is Obama. People love to blame Obama. I'm an Obama fan, but I'm just saying he's not the source of Israel's problem. Let's be honest. He's not the source of Israel. I'll tell you why. I can prove it. Because if tomorrow he gets replaced with someone else, we still have the same problems. You would think, oh, he's a problem, but someone else, a solution. I mean, with things so great, when Clinton was president, so understand, well, there's service with this guy. I'm not saying no, he's not the source of the problem. And, would you rather have Jimmy Carter as president? There's a guy that would certainly solve a lot of Israel's problems. So you say, not the source of the problem. And they blame people love to blame the media. CNN, BBC. People all the time forward me articles. Do you see what they wrote in the New York Times? And I write back, did you see what they wrote in Haaretz? You're sending me to the New York Times? I'll send you a newspaper that's printed in Jerusalem. Or Tel Aviv, wherever it's printed. You get the point. So, media, all of these things feed off the problem, yes. And they thrive because of the problem, yes. But they're not the source of the problem. So you have to understand, we're going to dig this a little bit deeper. And that is, look, we just finished Purim. Baruch Hashem, the Israeli people, the Jewish nation, have had its share of enemies. But we just finished Purim. We've always had our enemies. And in recent history, we're also dealing with the Arab enemy. But in years ago, what was the Arab enemy? A guy like Nasser. Remember Nasser, And in those days, the fight clearly was over the land. Remember they were marching to Tel Aviv, Yaffo. He had these marches, these chants. The fight was over the land. What do today's enemies want? Today's enemies. Let's take a look at Ahmadinejad. Does he want Kfar Saba? No. Does he really want to live in Rishon LeZion? I don't believe so. Or Nasrallah. Nasrallah was bombing Haifa. Do you think he really is longing for the day where he could move to Haifa? I don't believe that for a second. Well, let's think about what happened in this country not too many years ago when Bin Laden attacked the World Trade Center. Does he believe that Lower Manhattan is his? Is the fight over land? Let's focus for a second. What's happening now, the fight that's happening now, is it over land? And I say it has nothing at all to do with land. Those days are over. The fight today, the battle today, at least as far as the Arabs are concerned, is now known as a jihad. It's a holy war. What were the last two words screamed by the terrorist as he smashed the plane into the World Trade Center? It was not, "I love New York." It was not. We know what words they are. And I would imagine these are the words said all the time before these acts. It has nothing to do with land. So what's happening? The other side has these religious type of leaders. Fanatics, yes. Extremists, yes. But they're following what they believe is their fanatical, extreme version of their religion. And who do we have on our side leading us? Guys who still think the fight is over land. They're fighting this holy war. We're fighting this land war. Doesn't work. And that's why these things are clashing. And that's why we can't. So we're training our soldiers. I know Moshe's son is a combat soldier. My son finished 3 years as a combat officer. All the training they get is still that land battle. But that's not the fight anymore. And that's why we're not prepared. And that's why we're not able to do things that we were able to do years ago. And we need to switch focus to real Jewish leadership that will lead Israel based on these Jewish values and Jewish concepts. I want to read to you just a few words from an article in this past week's, of all places, Jewish Press. Listen to this. I'm sure you've all heard of Rabbi Krasansky from Teaneck. Listen to this. Israel deserves to have a believing Jew as its prime minister. And Israel's large religious Jewish community needs to have the self-confidence that a Torah Jew can infuse policy with faith. The new paradigm would transform the debate overnight. Territorial concessions would be ruled out because this is our land given to us by God. Building and development would take place throughout the land of Israel, as this is the Torah's mandate. Settlements, he writes in quotes, would no longer be an excuse for terror, but a natural part of nation building. What did Netanyahu say when he came Nebuch to be Menachem Avil to the Fogel family? We will build. That's the response. I mean, of course we should build, but it has nothing to do with the Fogels getting killed. We should be building anyway, because the Torah says that Jews should settle the land. Non-Jews would be welcomed, he writes, as residents of this land as long as they embraced basic norms of morality and acceded to the sovereignty of the Jewish people. Israel would not feel guilty about fighting and defeating a brutal and merciless enemy. It would no longer be on the defensive before international tribunals. Israel's prime minister would no longer be the only world leader who bends to President Obama's commands. Indeed, the word concession would be retired from Israel's diplomatic lexicon. Imagine if an Israeli prime minister said, quote, "World, we are here because the Almighty in whom we trust gave us this land, and we should serve Him and observe His Torah therein. Without the promises of the Torah, we have no reason to be here, and we are here to stay in the land of our history and our destiny." It concludes, "It is about time the people of Israel were governed by Jewish leaders steeped in Jewish history and values and faith. In a region being swept by less savory revolutions, this would be a revolution that would inspire our nation and perhaps even lead the world to a bright and peaceful era of untold good." Halavai that we should see that in our day. I'm going to show you a 6-minute video in about 30 seconds, which shows you that we're doing this exact thing. We didn't just come here to lecture. It's not what we do. These ideas of having somebody who's infused with Torah values, leading Am Yisrael, that the Prime Minister of Israel should be somebody connected to Avinu Shabashamayim and leading Israel according to these values, is something that we don't just talk about, we're doing. Moshe Feiglin and I, Shmuel Sackett, should have said that at the beginning, we started a group called Zohar Tzenu many years ago, where we were fighting against the Oslo rest in peace process, and we saw that that didn't get us anywhere, and we moved into the political arena, where we're trying to really and literally rise to the power inside the Likud party with our ideology of Jewish identity, Jewish values. Take a look at the 6-minute video, and I'll introduce to you the person who we think should become that Prime Minister, and after Moshe finishes speaking, whatever's on your mind, now's the chance to ask it. So Mark, show the video.
The Oslo Accord signed by the Rabin government and its painful results motivated Moshe Feiglin and Shmuel Sackett to establish the Zohar Tzenu movement in 1995. Zohar Tzenu got the people out into the streets in a protest of unprecedented proportions.
ההצלחה המסחררת שהייתה לנו בהפגנות שלנו לא הובילה לשום שינוי, הובילה לחילופי שלטון, נתניהו עלה לשלטון, ורוב לא נמשך.
As a result of the great disappointment, the idea to turn from a demonstrator into an influencer was born. The Manhigut Yehudit faction in the Likud was established, and its members began to register for the Likud en masse. They understood that a true revolution, the return to Am Yisrael's Jewish destiny, must also be political. In the 2002 primaries for the head of the Likud, Feiglin runs against Sharon and Netanyahu and wins 3% of the vote. Feiglin holds small meetings and political gatherings and convinces his listeners that Israel needs faith-based leadership. In the elections for the Likud Central Committee, Manhigut Yehudit wins 125 places. The first to take to the idea of faith-based leadership are the young people. Naturally, the Manhigut Yehudit Young People's Movement was established. The media discover Feiglin and host him on an array of primetime television shows. The broad media exposure becomes an opportunity to speak directly to the nation.
קיצוני מהצד הקיצוני. אני אדם קיצוני, ולא אני אדם קיצוני. אני חושב שההנהגה של עם ישראל, זה לא הנהגה לא כהנהגה פוליטית, הנהגה תרבותית, שאני לא חושב ממנה נדחתה אחרי שמאלה, ואנחנו צריכים לחזור אל הדרך שבה התחלנו.
In the next primaries, Moshe Feiglin runs against Benjamin Netanyahu and Silvan Shalom.
אני מתמודד את הסוף, אני מהווה את האלטרנטיבה האמונית לנתניהו.
And wins 13% of the votes. Moshe becomes a sought-after personality and is asked to express his opinion on every topic in appearances on every possible stage, discussion panel, and political forum. In 2008, Feiglin is the only candidate running against Netanyahu.
קרב בליכוד, נתניהו מול פייגלין.
בתוך הליכוד יש אדם אחד שמתמודד מול בנימין נתניהו, שמו משה פייגלין.
הגיע הזמן שהמחנה הלאומי, הגיע הזמן שהליכוד יציב אלטרנטיבה אמיתית לדרכו של השמאל.
Feiglin is well liked by the Likud members and the men on the street. In the elections for the head of the Likud, Moshe Feiglin gains the support of 24% of the voters. Media interest intensifies.
ליכוד בלי פייגלין זה לא ליכוד. יהודי אמיתי.
אל תפחד משום דבר, תמשיך בדרך הזאת, כי אתה באיזשהו מקום שליח.
In the voting booths, when the Likud members have their word, Moshe Feiglin wins 19th place on the Likud roster for the Knesset, but the Likud court pushes Feiglin down to 36th place. The Manhigut Yehudit members play a pivotal role in determining who is elected to the Likud Knesset roster.
זהו המסמך שיקבלו מחר האנשים, זהו הדין של פייגלין. תנו בבקשה את שתי הרשימות ותראו שפייגלין הוא המנצח הגדול.
And now there is no time to lose. We are preparing for the next elections. The Manhigut Yehudit volunteer organization, established by Dr. Nitza Kahana, is working all the time. Manhigut Yehudit successfully influences the mentality of the MKs and the entire party.
יש לכם השפעה הרבה יותר גדולה ממה שאתם חושבים. אני לא רוצה לחשוב מה היה קורה אם היה בליכוד גרעין אידיאולוגי חזק נאמן לדרך כמו הדברים שאתם מייצגים כאן.
התוצרים של מנהיגות יהודית ניכרים כל הזמן בחשיבה הפוליטית בתוך הליכוד וביכולת להצמיח מנהיגים חדשים כל פעם מחדש. אבל משה, הפירות של העמל שלך ניכרים בשטח. העובדה שיש חברת כנסת כמוני שלא מתביישת לדבר אמונה בכנסת זה תוצר של חשיבת המנהיגות יהודית, שלא יהיה ספק.
Manhigut Yehudit begins to publish Tomorrow magazine in order to lay the groundwork for the true revolution in the making.
הרעיון להביא לתיקון עולם, הרעיון היהודי הבסיסי של אברהם אבינו שיצא לדרכו, הוא רעיון של עם ישראל, אבל תדע לך שרוב רובה של האנושות, שמאמינה בתנ"ך, שתרבותה מבוססת בתנ"ך, שכן מאמינה באלוהים, מחכה שסוף סוף תרגיש לה את אותו מצפן מוסרי שחסר כל כך היום בעולם.
מנהיגות יהודית אמיתית היא באמת להביא ברכה לעם ולהביא ברכה לכולם. אם לא תהיה מנהיגות יהודית, העסקה נשלוט על העולם.
לפעמים יש דרך, כולם מכירים שרק פעם מנצחים. האויב העקשן ימוק העשן רק עם לב יהודי בליכוד עם פייגלין בראש.
Okay. Just wanted to show you that clip because, first of all, the number one question that we get is this really possible? Guy, nice guy, right? Interesting speaker, as you'll hear, but can you really do this? So I have to make you understand that the answer is yes. I mean, there's two ways of answering that question. Speaking to one of our big supporters from Chicago yesterday, and he says, Shmuel, let me tell you how I answer that question when people ask me, Does Feiglin really have a chance? I say 5 years ago, if I told you that the President of the United States would be a black man whose middle name is Hussein, would you have believed me? You would have called the men in the white coats to take me away for a couple of years, put me in a padded room. But it happens. Why? Because you have to understand. Hamamlich melachim velo hamelucha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu assigns who's going to be the melech in each individual place. We do ishtadlut, or as you say, ishtadlus, effort. We put in our effort, Shem Shamayim, you do the right thing, and this is something that can be possible. You see it's happening. 3%, 13%, the last elections, 24%. And when one of the biggest Gedolim today, Rav Shmuel Eliyahu, son of the great Rav Mordechai Eliyahu, says, it's not just about Israel. If there won't be a Manhigut Yehudit leading Israel, a faith-based leader, Islam will rule the world. This is not just about what's going to happen in Tel Aviv. This is about the entire world kulo. So Bezrat Hashem, who's going to do this? Who's going to lead this? Bezrat Hashem, Moshe Feiglin, and I present to you him right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Shmuel. He was very right, Shmuel Eliyahu, because he mentioned the bombing of the Twin Towers, World Trade Center, and the whole concept of Muslim suicide bomber appeared after the Oslo Agreement. It's interesting, it was not there before. So when Rav Shmuel Eliyahu says that without Jewish leadership, Islam will rule the world, he knows what he is talking about. When the Jews in the Oslo agreement basically gave up on the land of Israel, there's no vacuum. There's no vacuum. There are other forces that takes over the right to the Holy Land and basically to the whole world, because that's the entrance. Without the handshake of Rabin and Arafat at the White House, the Twin Towers would have still be standing. To understand that, and I'm happy to see that Rav Eliyahu understand and express that concept. But back to our day and back to what happened today. What is going to happen now? Well, according to what happened until today, it is quite obvious. We know it's like a ritual. Israel show weakness. Israel shows that we don't want the land of Israel, the Holy Land, that we don't feel the feeling of justification. We don't know how to justify our existence in Eretz Israel, and that moral vacuum brings in the Islamic terror against us. And then it begins. The question is not why they attack missile attack in Be'er Sheva this morning, and then suicide bomber in Yerushalayim, and a week ago the horrible massacre in Itamar. That is not the question. The question is what took them so long in the last year. And actually, I guess the answer is Avinu Shebashamayim has a lot of rachamim on his mercy on his sons, because the situation, the quiet that thank God we had in last year was not natural. It was like the quiet before the storm, and the storm is starting now. And it was obvious that it is going to come, and it's coming. We will probably get missiles again from the north as well, from Hezbollah, and here we have everything, the whole fire again, starting from the beginning, as we saw a few times before, since the Oslo process started in the middle of the country, in Yesha, in Jerusalem, in the cities within the Green Line, in the south, and probably also in the north. And that will lead, and again, I'm not a Navi, I'm just giving you a scenario that I'm running the same movie again. We were there a few times already. That will bring the Israeli leadership into a position that they will have to somehow react to that in order to stay in power. And there will be another military action like Ofer Tetzukah, cast lead, number 2. Go into Gaza, out of Gaza, into Lebanon, maybe bomb Lebanon, out of Lebanon. They can do everything besides winning, because winning meaning take over the land from the Arabs. But the whole concept of Oslo and the whole conscience of Oslo that took over all the leadership in Israel, left and right, Likud and Labor and Kadima, of course, is the peace process conscience, the concept of dividing the land. And the last thing we want is to go back to Gaza. And therefore we cannot win. But what will happen is that we'll go in this process of going in, achieving nothing, and going out, is that few Arabs will die. Because that's what happens when you going into a war, obviously. And then the pressure from the world will be on the Israeli leadership again, very strong pressure to come up with the continuation of the peace process, from some kind of a plan. And then you'll see again plans like the Hitnatkut, the engagement plan. And that will lead to another election in Israel, and the whole story. And again, not that I'm a Navi and I know exactly how things are going to be, and it's not, and history never repeats itself exactly, but basically we see the written word on the wall. So nothing has changed. Almost nothing. Something, what I just explained can bring you to some kind of a despair. But in the background, something is starting to change. Something different, something that we did not see before. And I spoke about it on Monday night in our dinner. The Israeli society beginning to realize that there is no peace solution anywhere in the horizon. And therefore, they're starting to feel more solidarity with the settlers and with the settlers' ideology. And I'll talk about it soon, but before I'm getting into it, and this is very, very important, because the whole ability of the Israeli leadership to continue the same process is to give the Israelis this false feeling that there is some kind of solution somewhere along the way. There's some kind of peace waiting for them somewhere. But once they understand that there is no peace, then things starting to change. What is the two sides to the conflict in Israel? What do they want? We all in Israel and in America, every Israeli and a person who lives in the Western world, we all taught to believe that the conflict is about land, as Shmuel said. We want to have our Jewish state, and they want to have the so-called Palestinian state. And therefore,
And because we both won our sovereignty, our states, at the same piece of land, we should somehow divide the land, achieve peace, and solve the problem. Well, in 1947, actually in February 1947, the question of the land of Israel was brought to the UN. The British mandate was about to finish, and what to do, the question of what to do, what should the world do with the conflict in the land of Israel was brought to the UN, the entire world. And Ernst Bevin, who was the foreign minister of Britain, of England, big anti-Semite, came to the UN to explain to the world what both sides want. What is the goal of both sides? So we'll understand what is the conflict about. And he said the following. He said, what the Jews want, their goal is to establish a Jewish state in the land of Israel. That is the Jewish side of the formula. What the Arabs in Eretz Israel want, by the way, he did not use the term Palestinians. I guess he did not heard it before. However, what the Arabs in Eretz Israel want, their goal is that the Jews will never have a state anywhere in the land of Israel. So this guy, this anti-Semite, who ruled that country in the last 30 years, because the British mandate was then 30 years already, and knew very well what's going on, told us the truth already then. It's not, we don't have here two sides who wishes to have their country, who wishes to have sovereignty in Eretz Israel. No, you have the Jews who do, and the Arabs that don't, the last thing they want is a Palestinian state. This is not what they're dreaming about. This is not what they care. What they want is that the Jews will not have. Now, this is something that for us is very hard to accept, because if that is true, there is no chance for peace. It's not a territorial conflict, and it doesn't and therefore you cannot solve this conflict with your Western way of mind. Okay? You have something here much deeper than that. And the whole reason we came to Eretz Israel, the whole reason, the whole goal of Zionism is coming back to Eretz Israel and establish a state like all the states based on Western values and be a nation like all the nations. That's the whole goal. And here we're coming to Eretz Israel and getting stuck with our Jewish identity because we're going to have war forever that will point at us as different than others. The others will not accept us and show that we are different. We're not a nation like all the nations. We are Jews. Anyhow, so we decided to fool ourselves. And while reality shows that the problem is not a territorial problem, we have fooled ourselves and keeping fooling ourselves and telling ourselves that the problem is territorial, because if it's not, then we'll never achieve this goal of Am K'chol Amim, nation like all the nations. Now I want to go back, and by the way, nothing has changed since February in 1947, when Ernst Bevin said these words to the UN until today. No group of people, no ethnic group of people but what they call themselves Palestinians, ever in the history of the world, got so much help, so much international effort in order to help them create their state, and their state was never established. The reason is this is not their goal. Clear and simple as that. It is not their goal. It is not what the story is about. They see themselves as part of the big Arab nation, which they are, and for every Arab in the world, the existence of Jewish sovereignty in the middle of what they call Dar al-Islam, the region of Islam, is prohibited. Okay, they cannot accept it. We did everything we can in order to achieve peace, and the way we did it is that we bribe dictators. For example, we bribed the Egyptian dictator, Sadat, and then Mubarak, by with billions of American aid, okay, and American weapon, and we buy all the gas that our electricity is need from Egypt instead of producing it ourselves. This money goes to Egypt instead of to Israel, and so on. We bribe the dictators to somehow keep a mask of peace. But the minute that we have these revolutions in the Arab countries, so what do we see on our TV screens? We see the Egyptians riots in the Tahrir Square in Cairo. We see them holding pictures of Mubarak, the Patriot Mubarak, with what sign on it? Magen David, not the swastika, the Magen David, the most hated sign. So the Israelis see suddenly, when the dictator is moving aside, there was never peace with the people. With the Arab people, there was no peace. Suddenly the Minister of Justice in Jordan, is calling to release the Egyptian murder of the 6 girls, the murder of 6 girls from Beit Shemesh, and call him a kadosh, a martyr, and he's still and he did not resign. He's still in office. The Israelis understand that there was no peace, there is no peace, and probably there will be no peace. And a very leftist reporter named Guy Meroz wrote in Ma'ariv last week after the horrible massacre in Itamar, and amazing lines. He wrote that after what he saw in Itamar, he feels very scared that maybe there was no peace, there will be no peace, and he feels the need to hide, as he expressed his feelings, to hide under the big wings of the dress of Daniela Weiss. Daniela Weiss, the famous leader of the settlement movement. Daniela Weiss, yes. Here you see a well-known leftist guy in Israel, writer in Israel, already telling us that he understands that his ideology don't give him the strength to live in Israel anymore, and maybe he needs to look for it, for the feeling of justification under the ideology of the settlers. So something is changing in the Israeli society. When I came back from the funeral of the Fogel family, and I got into my car, I realized that the funeral was broadcast live in Galei Tzahal. Galei Tzahal is the second big TV radio channel in Israel. You could, unfortunately, since the Oslo process started, I went to many funerals. the only way to hear it live was to open Arutz Sheva, the settler radio station. The official Israeli radio station, reported about it, but did not give you the feeling of participation. Here, I'm coming back to the car, and suddenly I understand that I was not there in the funeral by myself, together with people who looks like me, feels like me, live in the place where I live, and so on. Maybe thousands of them, but yet not the entire Israeli society. I was there with all Israel together. Something is changing for the good. The minute we took the dream of peace aside, Israelis understand that they're here by themselves. We may see some extreme leftists leaving the country. You may see. If you open the website of Haaretz, you'll see many commercials of how to buy homes in America and all over the world. But Haaretz is not Israel. Haaretz is a very small minority of Israelis. The majority of Israelis' conscience is changing. It may take time, a year or two, maybe 3, but there's a shift. There's a shift. And that shift, I believe, will bring us to power. Will bring Manhigut Yehudit to power. Because when there'll be a critical mass of Israelis who already left the context of Oslo, or who already don't lean on the concept of two-state solution and peace process and all this garbage anymore, they'll have no other leadership to lean on besides the faith-based leadership that we offer. So that is the good news. We'll still see the ritual I spoke about before. It's going to take time. Unfortunately, it's going to be painful. Nothing is going to come easy. Nothing is going to come in a straight line. There'll be ups and downs. But there's a shift. And at the end of it, we will lead the state of Israel. And when we will lead the state of Israel, you'll see no more Jews being slaughtered by Arabs. That I can promise you. I'll just finish with the words I heard today from a woman whom I don't know at all. We sat at that
Friends of the IDF.
Did the dinner of the Friends of the IDF, and about a 60-year-old woman sat next to Shmuel, and she pointed at me and she said something very interesting. He said, the minute the Arabs will know that the Prime Minister of Israel believes in God, there'll be no war anymore. He'll leave us alone. And I told Shmuel, this is something that either you understand or you don't. It's very hard to explain, but it's exactly like that. And by the way, they're saying it by themselves. He's saying it by themselves. Because when Israel will have that kind of leadership, not only that we will change our conscience and understand ourselves and stick to our own identity, we will understand them better. When they will see that we know who they are and where they're coming from, they will let us live in peace in Eretz Israel and do what we need to do as Jews and achieve our goals in Eretz Israel. Be'ezrat Hashem, that will happen as soon as can be. Now I'll take questions.
I have one simple question for you. I basically agree with everything you say, and it's really the war against the Jews. It's just today's form of the Nazis or what the Arabs are. And you can see they had the relationship in World War II with them also. But my question to you is a very practical question. When Obama calls you on the phone and says, Moshe, we're not giving you the $3 billion if you don't do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, what do? Israel doesn't make their own engines that go in their tanks. They don't make an airplane.
I'm happy you asked this question because it is very important to put, as you said, you ask a practical question, and I'll answer you in a very practical way. Okay? I'll answer you with facts. The facts are like this. the United States of America sells a lot to Israel. Israel is one of the biggest market of America. I think number 12 or 13. America sells to Israel more than it sells to India with more than 1 billion people. Israel with 6-7 million people buy from America more than India or Brazil. Interesting, no? So we buy a lot from America. We need America, as you say. But believe it or not, Israel sells to America, okay, export to America, a third more, 33% more than what it buys. Now, what Israel buy from America? Weapon. Basic thing, most of the things we buy from America is weapon. What does Israel sell to America? High tech. What's the difference between the two? The difference is weapon you can buy everywhere. High tech is something that, it's like, it used to be, Israel used to produce oranges, so you could buy it in Spain instead. But if you want a specific software, you have to get it, okay, from where it's coming from. We don't get $3 billion from America. It is not true. We get about $1.5 billion from America, and we don't need it. Israel don't need it. The Israeli income in a year, it's about it's over 150 billion a year. We're talking about between 1% and 2% from our national income. There is political reasons why we take it, not economical reasons why we take it. There are definitely different places where we can get the engines for the tanks. Okay. I'll give you, if you want to get more into details with that, I'll tell you something very interesting. America today is pushing Israel to buy the F-35, okay, the new aircraft. Israel don't need it. And I believe Israel will never buy it. The Syrian nuclear reactor was bombed during the Olmert time, by the way, about 2 years ago, by the F-16 aircraft. And the Syrian radar, very sophisticated Russian radar, did not see the F-16. How come? We did not have the F-35 yet, which supposedly should be the kind that has the technology not to be seen. So how come the Syrian did not see the F-16? Because the Israelis found a way to solve the problem with computer technology instead of aviation technology. I'm not going to get too much into detail. I'll tell you later if you want. But basically, we don't need it anymore. The F-16 can carry more bombs, more weight than the F-35. And if you solve the problem of the radar, you don't need the F-35 anymore. Basically, what I'm telling you is that Americans depend on the Israeli market and the Israeli technology today much, much more than Israel depends on America. So forget about this assumptions that Israel cannot deal without America, cannot live without America. The evidence shows the opposite. Okay? Why are we still taking that money? It's a big, big mistake. Should have stopped a long time ago. It's psychology, it's politics. It's to show that we have this ally. Yesterday, we sat there, Shmuel and I, and listened to our defense minister speaking to the friends of the IDF and ripped our heads, our hair out of your head. He said the most important thing that Israel have to defend itself is the United States of America. This is nonsense. Not that I'm saying Israel should isolate itself from the world like Albania. This is not what I'm saying.
Yeah, but they'll treat you like South
to
Africa.
develop this feeling that our lives depend on America is totally wrong.
They'll treat you like South Africa.
The veto in the UN.
Look, Israel economy is probably the strongest Western economy today. The Israeli currency, the shekel, as funny as it sounds, is the strongest currency in the Western world. Should I tell you what's the position of the dollar today?
It's garbage.
It's garbage.
It's garbage.
The Israeli technology is way beyond the American technology. Yes, America is big and Israel is small. It's not that I'm not understanding what's going on here. But Israel is a serious state, strong economy, strong technology. To say that Israel cannot exist without America, the Israeli position, technically I'm talking about now, not psychology and spiritually, but technically is much better than America. The Israeli debt is the lowest in the Western world. So economically and militarily, we're in a much better position than America. And I don't see America gives up so easy now about a market that is bigger than India and Brazil. America needs Israel not any less, to be modest, than Israel needs America. Because if Israel is starting to produce this technology, military technology that I just started to talk about, it's making most of the strongest industrial line of America, meaning the military industrial. What does America produce? America produces more weapons than any other country in the world. If Israel can make this military production of America, irrelevant, then America needs Israel much more than Israel needs America. I'm not going to get more into details. It's a whole lecture to itself. All I'm saying is the assumption that Israel cannot exist without America is totally wrong. Practically and pragmatically.
Question.
Yes.
We have so many sons in Israel, Arabs. Years ago, Maya Kahana put forth the idea of buying the Arabs out, like buying them out, that they should leave the country. Is this something that could be applied today, or how would you get rid of the sons that we have in the country?
It's not only that it can be applied today, it must be applied today. It must be applied today, yes. And again, I'll be very practical and pragmatical, okay? Israel is spending on the concept of the two-state solution, on this false understanding of the problem and the false solution of the problem, 10% of his income every year. In the last decade, in the last 10 years, we spent $150 billion on the Oslo process, on building walls around ourselves, on creating missile against missiles, all kind of systems and so on. Believe me, I can show you exactly the figures about, it's about 10%, 150 billion every year. And we keep on spending that money.
Rocket proofing every rooftop in State Road.
Yes, and it's not solving anything. With that money, we could have invest, not just give for free, but invest $300,000 on every Arab family in Yehuda Shomron, in helping them, encourage them to leave. And that should be the solution.
Do you think it would work?
I'm sure it will work. not only because they express their feelings to leave, most of them wishes to leave, but there are many countries who need them, who wants them to come. Today, the question is not who is going to build the skyscrapers in Toronto, for example. The question is he going to come from Sudan or from Ramallah? That's the question. Most of the Western countries today have less than 2 kids per family. They're shrinking, they're getting smaller and smaller. So in order to have bus drivers and even engineers, not talking about people to sweep the streets, you need immigration. So on one hand, they don't like the Muslim immigration. On the other hand, they need it. So if you look at Canada, for example, they're trying to get only the young immigration that comes by themselves and so on, but they do need this immigration. We should definitely help this process. But instead of doing that, we're doing the opposite. We invest money in Shechem and making their life easier and making them stay. We should work the other way around, encourage them to leave.
And speaking of immigration, now there's a lot of Africans, Sudanese especially, moving to Israel to work in the hotels and do all these poor jobs. You look at a lot full of foreign workers. Isn't that also a demographic problem and a problem to the Jewish identity? How would you address the foreign workers? The Thai workers too, by the way.
Answer that, I'm passing around a sheet, right? You just keep passing around the sheet, fill out your name, email, and cell phone number. Just make sure that sheet goes around. Rob, make sure everybody gets it, so this way we can be in touch with you. We send 1 to 2 emails a week, so you'll be in touch with up to date as Moshe's articles and so on.
Yes, you're right. It's a big problem. You see in Israel those who fighting against stopping this process. It's a terrible process. Eilat is already covered with the Sudanese and Arad, also south of Tel Aviv. You see again and again, those people who wishes for them to stay and not to leave are those who don't want a Jewish state. It's not about humanity, it's about how can we destroy the Jewish identity of the state of Israel. It can be stopped, it can easily stop, and it will be, without a chance. Shmuel, tell me who to... Okay, fine.
Right now it seems to have slowed, but in...
Wait, what?
In Iran,
Yeah.
they're saying now that maybe in 2015 they'll develop a nuclear weapon. What would you do to forestall that process or address it if it did come to pass?
To be honest with you, I don't know if it's going to be in 12-15 or if they already have it. Okay? One thing I know, talking about the Iranian problem, we have to get to the bottom of that. We just coming out of Purim, story of Haman, story of Amalek. And what was the story of Amalek? Amalek, when Bnei Israel coming out of Egypt, he's the first one to challenge the sons of God in a war. The whole world is looking after these people that were brought out of Mitzrayim, the special people that God Himself takes out of Egypt, and suddenly Amalek is fighting against them. No one dared to touch them, but after Amalek fighting them and lose, then wars starts all around. And Chazal tells us that Amalek jumped into a hot tub, that's the way they describe it, got burned, but made the water cold. And now it's cool and everybody feels comfortable to come and fight against the people of Israel. That's why it says in the Pasuk, Asher karcha b'derech, made you cold. And And this is exactly what Ahmadinejad is doing. The Amalek of our days. What is he doing? If you remember, try to remember, when Ahmadinejad first time spoke about the need to erase the state of Israel, everybody was amazed. How can you do something like that? How can you talk like that? After the Holocaust, a member of the UN, one state talk like this into another state of the UN, it's impossible. What's going to be the reaction of Israel? What's going to be the reaction of America? And nothing happened. He keep on talking. And the world still, turning around. The sun goes up, the sun goes down. Everything is like natural. What happens afterwards, in the coming years? It is not Ahmadinejad that cannot go on speaking tour in Europe. It's the Israeli generals that cannot go. It is not the Iranian legitimacy to exist that is gone in the Western world. It's the Israeli legitimacy to its own existence that's disappearing. It's the same mechanism with Amalek in Bnei Israel and with Ahmadinejad with the state of Israel today. He's jumping, he's the first one to say those words and to starting the process of delegitimize of the state of Israel. It is very interesting, and now when we understand that concept, we should go back to your question, what should we do? And we should understand, at least to my understanding, the real danger from Iran is not the atomic bomb, or the danger that is much bigger than the atomic bomb. Not that the atomic bomb is not dangerous, but there's something that, to my opinion, is much, much worse than the atomic bomb, and it's this process, the delegitimization of Israel. Because what we learned 60 years ago is that before they be able to take away your life, they make you pay for the air you breathe. They put in a question mark about your right to live, and they take away your honor. And therefore, any leader in the world that comes and say, I'm going to destroy Israel, should die. So Israel must kill Ahmadinejad himself. Not before. I don't know if, I think I do know, but let's say I don't know if we can attack the nuclear reactors, if we can't, if we have the technology solutions, exactly how to deal with this problem or the other. But in principle, somebody who's talking like Hitler should die. Yes, please.
Two questions to you. What do you think we should do with the Arab Israelis?
What should do with what?
Israeli Arabs.
Arab Israelis.
Yes.
That are 20% Israel. How do you solve? What do you do with them? You also take them out. You take their rights to vote. They can stay there, but they cannot vote, so they don't make a difference. Because in 20, 30 years, it could be more than us. They're going to take democratically. They're going to overpower us. So I don't think any Manhigut Yehudit so far has addressed that issue in public. And with the Hamas, you said it's a holy war, obviously. It's the West Bank, we did it with a second Amalek. So how can you export them with money? If it's an ideological war, how will they be if it's a matter of money? You give them, you think that you could do that?
Well, what they call the Israeli Arabs. The Arabs are holding an Israeli ID, yes.
Citizenship.
are a bigger problem than those who call themselves Palestinians, to my opinion. Much bigger problem. Basically, they have exactly the same feelings, the Arab in Ramleh and the Arab in Ramallah and the Arab in Cairo, feeling the same feelings that I explained before. And this is something we should all understand. It was amazing when Nasrallah shot the missiles up north and an Arab girl was killed in one of the Arab villages inside Israel. The parents said she is a martyr, not an Israeli martyr, a Muslim martyr. He see his dead children as a shaheed. We're talking about an Israeli, yes? So that is the truth, first of all. We should understand what we're dealing with. Look, democracy should serve the concept of the Jewish state and not the other way around. Okay? Democracy is very nice and very important. Still, maybe Bob Unger can explain that better than me, but as far as I know, there are American soldiers fighting right now in Afghanistan that cannot vote in the election in America. So there's a difference between human rights, which you have to give to every human being if he's not fighting against you, and civilian rights, which you give, which every country gives in a way that will not put it in danger and will not aim against the basic goal, against the basic ethos of that country. We did not come to Eretz Israel after 2,000 years just to achieve peace, because for that we could go to more peaceful places on earth, and not to establish another democracy, because there are some good democracies in the world as well. It's not that we don't want peace, and it's not that we are against democracy, but this is not the goal. And if the democracy in the most extreme liberal way aim or stands in contradiction against the basic goal of why we are there, then democracy should be changed. And there are many, many kinds of democracy. Democracy in India is not like the democracy in America, and both are not like democracy in England or in Switzerland. So we should have a Jewish democracy. Democracy that serves the goal of the Jewish state, not to destroy the Jewish state. I know that I did not answer your question in specific, and there's a reason for it. I want to be the Prime Minister of Israel, and I'll answer you in a way that will serve that goal and not stop that goal. Yes. Please.
So the second question, will it take money from Synagogue? One second, she has a second question. One second, she has a second question. Will someone who has a religious war just be bought up by money? That's the second question.
That's an important question. If somebody was having a religious war, will be bought by money. There's a big difference, at least by the Arabs, between the way they see themselves individually and the way they see themselves when they are part of their nation. Individually, they'll be bought by money. Individually, you can do. They're very good people, individually, by the way. They're not evil people. Once they are together, once they are part of their nation, you're talking now something else. Okay? So that's the answer. When you dealing with them individually, the answer is yes. You can pay them, you can deal with them, you can even trust them. Once you're talking about them as part of the Muslim nation, it doesn't matter how nice the individual and trustful the individual is, you have a war. Yes, please.
So how will Manhigut Yehudit show that they're a Torah and faith-based political group and not just slide into being political and show publicly that they do mitzvahs and that they say Shema Yisrael and encourage Israel to be Torah and Bible-based and not just another political secular group?
I'm not sure I understood the question.
Well, what's different about Manhigut Yehudit is that it's faith-based and that our right to be in Israel is based on the Torah, and that makes us there because we believe in God and because we're Jewish people who observe the Torah. So how will we stand by that, and will you be making brachas when you make your speeches? Like, are there going to be...
Of course, like Ovadia, I'll give brachot.
I've never seen it before, which is why I'm asking it.
We're not rabbinical leadership. We're a political leadership based on faith, based on Jewish values.
But Torah is Jewish value.
Of course. Of course.
I don't know why everyone's so surprised by my question. Maybe I'm not in the right place, but...
No, but what...
If we believe in Hashem, we have to say Shema Yisrael in public.
Oh, I'm saying Shema Yisrael in public. What's the question?
Are the buses going to run on Shabbat? I think that's what she's asking.
That's the question? If bus is going to run on Shabbat?
Not if you're going to force religion on the people, but...
What? Again?
Obviously, I'm not saying you should force religion on the people, but that you yourself publicly show that you do mitzvot and that you are a Torah observant person before you're a political person.
You don't see it?
You know, I just want to answer the question this way. There's a certain individual in the United States, probably known as the biggest Baal Tzedakah in all of America. Very wealthy man, and I was working on close to 2 years at securing an appointment with him. And finally he came to Israel. This was last Sukkot. And we met him on the last day. He was leaving that night. We met him in Yerushalayim in the King David Hotel. We were working 2 years to get to see this fellow. Finally we got to see him. Moshe and I comes with our friend David Shirel from Hebron, who was also there to meet this very interesting man. We sat down. We were talking to him for about 10, 12 minutes. He was very interested in what Moshe had to say. And all of a sudden they announced that Mincha was being taking place downstairs. David and I had already davened. Moshe did it. Moshe gets up and says, I'm going to go daven Mincha now. This fellow said, Moshe, I don't have much time. I want to sit and talk with you. Moshe said, it's very nice to talk with you, but I have to daven Mincha with a minyan. He's not saying Kaddish, Baruch Hashem. I want to daven Mincha with a minyan. It took us 2 years to land this appointment. And a minyan for Mincha was more important than that. And David and I were schmoozing with him. Came back 15 minutes. It's not called Mincha. It's not, Musaf of Yom Kippur. How long does it take? Right, 15 minutes. Moshe came back. And the fellow kept talking. And at the end of the meeting, gave us a very nice check. And he said the following words to me. You know why I gave you this check? Because of the mincha that Moshe davened.
I feel the same way.
He stopped in the middle and said, Kol hakavod to you, but I'm going to daven mincha. That's the kind of Jewish leader you will have in Israel.
Israelis to follow that. How are you going to?
That's okay.
No, but let me answer also that.
How are you going to get there?
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you, as a matter of fact, I even wrote down some numbers here, because there's things that have to be explained. What percentage of Israelis fast on Yom Kippur? What would you say? What percentage of Israelis fast on Yom Kippur?
90%.
A little bit less. 87%, according to Yediot Achronot. Okay? 87%. Now, it's funny. We're used to it, right? We're like, marathon runners. We're used to it. We just had a Tanis Esther, a couple of Tzom Gedalias along the way. By the time we get to Yom Kippur, nothing. We're like, no problem. But a guy who the whole year long doesn't is not involved in these things, and he's not in shul the whole time. He's not in shul. It's like a guy. I know a guy who I don't see him in shul too often. Comes just once a year, and I said to him, in Israel, Reuven, why don't you come more often? He says, because shul, every single time I come to shul, you guys are saying the same exact thing. I said, what do you mean? He says, every time I come, Kol Nidre, another Kol Nidre, next time I come, Kol Nidre. You got the joke. Anyway, so these guys that come for Kol Nidre, right? And they're fasting. 87% are fasting on Yom Kippur. It's incredible. Brit Milah. What percentage of Israeli boys have a Brit Milah? 96%. Now, there's no law. If you don't give a Brit Milah in terms of Israeli law, I'm not talking about the ultimate law. So, 96%. What percentage of women light candles Friday night? What percentage of women light candles Friday night? 71%. This is just incredible. Now, we understand what we're dealing with. There's a woman, I live in Herzliya, and there's a woman that I know, and she says to me, Shmuel, I light candles every Friday night. Even when I get home from the movie at 11 o'clock at night, I light candles. So I'm like, okay, nice, what am I going to say to her? So, we know they're lighting candles, and many of them what they're doing afterwards. But the fact that they say, time out, it's Leil Shabbat, and they light candles, it's an incredible thing. So when they will see a leader acting this way, talking this way, following this way, breathing this way, they will follow that leader in similar things. You mentioned a good point. There's one thing secular Israelis are very fearful of. Kfiyah datit, religious coercion. And very, very afraid. This is where they will literally fight. They don't want someone to come in and open up their refrigerator and, hey, what's this doing here? They don't want kfiyah datit, but they want something. Right, I'm saying they want. So when you show them that it's not kfiyah datit, it's through love, through education, chinuch, tolerance, with a smile, the kiruv, and so on, Bezrat Hashem, tremendous things will happen. I just want to show you something that we're doing now. We alluded to it for a couple of seconds on a quick video. People always ask and really want to get into detail about certain aspects. What is really going to be like in the Jewish state? So, years ago, Netanyahu's buddy Sheldon Adelson wanted to get involved more in Israel and asked Netanyahu what he recommends he should do. And Netanyahu told him, and rightfully so, to start a newspaper to really combat the extreme leftist, the media, and he started a paper called Yisrael Hayom. So in Israel, it's a free newspaper, actually not too bad, and it's called Yisrael Hayom, Israel Today. We also decided to come out with something. We don't have the Sheldon Adelsons yet behind us, Bezrat Hashem soon, but so we have a magazine that comes out every other week at the present time, and it's not called Yisrael Hayom, but it's called Yisrael Machar. Right? Israel tomorrow, or simply Machar. Because we all know what it's going to be like today. That's something I don't understand. Of all the years that I lived in this country, at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, right before you're going to bed, you watch the news, and it gets to the weather, and the guy spends about 5 minutes telling you what the weather was like today. I know what the weather was like today. I lived through today. I'm now about to go to sleep. Please tell me what the weather's going to be like tomorrow. I need to know. Boots, hats, gloves, coat, scarf, umbrella. No, tell me what's going to be like tomorrow. He spends an enormous amount of time. Thank you very much. So this is Machar. What Israel's going to be like tomorrow? Every issue focuses on a different topic, in depth. And it's not a dati publication. So we give it out in universities across the country, also in shuls. This issue, and I have a few to take home. It's all in Ivrit, but Achva, brotherhood. This one deals about the concept of Cherut, Marechet HaChinuch, the education system, Demokratia U'Bechira, the election process, democracy, Kvod ha'adam, human rights, respecting other human beings. Every issue focuses on a different topic so people can see what we're talking about in depth, what it is, what's the vision, what's the dream. So Moshe will take two more questions before we conclude, but I just want to ask for your assistance in making this happen. And then of course, if those of you can help financially, we're more than happy to accept it. Our organization is called Manhigut Yehudit. You could also make it out to the Jewish Leadership Movement, if that's easier to pronounce than Manhigut Yehudit. In any case, this is what we're trying to do. Nothing less than rising to the leadership of Israel based on these values of Jewish pride and Jewish identity on a national level. You had a question in the back?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for inspiring us today. I've been so disillusioned and I've had such a wish of what's going on in Eretz HaKodesh. Baruch Hashem, we have a manhig. We could quote from Megillat Esther, Mordechai lo yifral v'lo yishtachaveh. And I hope that when you, Mit Hashem, come to power, that you'll remember. I'm sure you'll remember those words of not giving into the goyim. I just wanted to make a comment on the first question. It's brought down in Tanakh, Dor Halech v'Dor Ba v'Haaretz l'Olam Hamelech, which means basically a generation comes and a generation goes, but the land still stands. And I was thinking when you asked your question, I don't know your name, the first question, that, even though we don't know what's going to happen in the future, for sure, unfortunately, it's looking, and we can't be sure, only Hashem knows, that, the leadership of America is on a decline. The economy is bad, so when we talk about buying arms, who knows what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has in store for us. It could be that America won't even have the money. The economy will go down. So we have emunah shlema b'HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ein lanu al mi lishayin. We don't lean on anybody but HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the other thing I just wanted to tell you, to bless you when you come, and I'm not one to give brachos, I don't charge, don't worry, that it says in Megillat Esther, Ki nafal pachad hayudim aleichem. I can't wait, I cry when I read those words. I hope one day I'll wake up and I'll feel, and I was like 4 years old in 1967, something like that the Arabs will be afraid of us because, Hema Yishlatu, that we will rule them, and in Mitzvah we should all be Zocha, for Mashiach to come, Bimhera, B'yameinu.
I can just continue with one pasuk, what you just said. It says, וראו כל עמי הארץ כי שם השם נקרא עליך ויראו ממך, and all the nations will see that the name of God is being written above your head, if I translate it right, and then they'll be afraid of you. When the nations see that you carry the message that you're supposed to carry, that you're wearing the right uniform and doing the mission that you're supposed to do as the people of God, Shem Hashem Nikra Alecha, then they understand that God is behind you and they'll be afraid of you. And that's the only way to bring that fear that you're talking about. Because with all the technology I spoke before, and with all the anti-missiles techniques and whatever that we have, there is no fear. We need that. But without Shem Hashem Nikra Alecha, it's not going to work.
Right, there was just one more thing that I wanted. Can I just
Take another question.
Let's take another question, yes.
Yes, please.
I would very much like to see you Prime Minister and winning the ticket in Likud, etc. But for many years, I'm very skeptical of that Likud would not be Likud, etc. I would very much love you to join Likud Leumi, and I think that's I wish you would be there, and I wish that party would be in the next election a force to contend with.
Look, Likud Leumi is I think number 33 already of parties of that concept. Okay? Since Mafdal and Atchiyah and Moledet and you name it, okay? It's another one like this, and it is definitely not a tool to lead. It's a sectorial tool. If you see yourself as a sector and you want to gain something as a sector, then maybe, not sure, but maybe it's the right tool. I don't think so, but maybe. If you're talking about the leadership of the state of Israel, you have to use the right tools. You have to speak the political language of leadership and not a sectorial language. And the leadership ball game of the national camp of the Jews who identify themselves first of all and above all as Jews. We're talking about 80% of Israel is basically is the Likud. And I definitely agree it's a problematic tool. It's not an easy ball game. Nothing holy about it. Yet no one was able to point for us a different ball game to lead the nation besides this one.
Okay, yeah, we'll just take last question, and then Moshe will stay here if anybody has private questions, but...
Yes, first of all, I want to commend you for being so upbeat about all this. I personally, to echo what the gentleman just said before, I'm a little bit depressed because I've been going to these meetings for 25 years.
Because you're going where?
I've been going to these kinds of meetings when Rabbi Kahana was alive for the past 25 years, and we heard the same thing then, and he was going to be prime minister, and things didn't turn out that way. I have to tell you, just as a side note, luckily tonight I was shocked that there was no security at the door. You need to protect yourself. Yes. That's very important to us. We came here, we want you to move on, you need to protect yourself. But that's besides the point. Make sure there's security next time. Any idiot can walk in here and it's not going to be good. I met Kahana a few weeks before he was killed, and on Friday night, and I asked him, Hashem has to take care of you. What are you doing? And he said, Hashem will take care of you. And we were crossing the street together. So you need to take care of yourself with security. Plus a little extra money, charge $5, we'll all pay. But my question is, the issue is not the Arabs, the issue is not America, the issue is us. That has always been the issue. We're Akashay Oref. You're dealing with the Arab Rob for the most part. The Likud is a bunch of hooligans in the Likud. Now half of the Likud is turning in the right direction. We don't have 29 years like Menachem Begin to wait till we get into power. So what's the process in Mikesh Titako? Well, what's the process? They're always changing the rules of the game. Netanyahu is always changing the rules. You're in Likud and that's probably the best place to be. But what's the process to get more people like yourself in there so that we can make changes and not have to wait 29 years?
I cannot tell you how long it's going to take. I cannot tell you that. Only God knows. I can tell you that there are two basic things that we need to do. We need to be we need to be relevant. B, we need to be reachable. That's it. The rest of it is at the hands of God, and when time will be ready, it will happen. When it will happen very fast. I'll be, Be'ezrat Hashem, God willing, the Prime Minister of Israel, surprisingly. Just like Obama, just like Mubarak, after 30 years, fell suddenly. When time comes, when time comes to, as the pasuk says, Leharitz et Yosef min habor, after 12 years he was in the bore in Egypt, everything moves very, very fast. But you have to be there. You have to be there in a way that people can vote for you, relevant and reachable. Until then, everybody should be able to hear you, know what you're talking about. I know no politician in Israel that write articles and express himself more than me, excuse me for not being modest. These are the 2 points. If you want to know what we want to achieve, what we believe in, if you want to ask a question, you can get into one of our 4 websites, all kinds of websites, read our literature, what I write, what I do, running around, talking, explaining, that we do. If you want to vote for us, you can. You can join Likud, you can. And the rest of it is at the hands of God. As I explained, the changes are happening. It's not that I'm going to be elected suddenly, because we're going to register enough people and somehow take away the Likud from Benjamin Netanyahu, and then I'll change the Israeli society 100%, 180 degrees. It's a little bit childish to think this way. It's going to be the other way around. The conscience is going to change from the reasons I explained, and that's what will bring me to power. Bezrat Hashem.
I just want to conclude with a story that everybody's talking about. We're just here for a couple of days. There's the big Mega Millions drawing this week, $304 million jackpot. Right? So I remember many years ago, there was a fellow that hit on hard times. He and his wife had literally no food to eat, nothing. And the Powerball drawing at the time was $250 million. So he went to his Rebbe. His Rebbe gave him a bracha, tremendous bracha. We talked about bracha before, that he'll win the Powerball drawing. He came home, he spoke to his wife, they were dancing. Anyway, so they had the Powerball, and they didn't win. He goes to the Rebbe, he says, Rebbe, I don't want to complain, I love you so much, Rebbe, but the Rebbe said I would win. I didn't win. Can't be. No way. Rebbe, call it kavod. I didn't win. So then Rebbe looked at him and asked him, I just have one question for you. Did you buy a ticket? He says, no, I got the Rebbe's bracha. So the Rebbe said, yeah, I gave you a bracha that your ticket should win, but you have to buy a ticket. We've been talking a lot. Being Rosh Hashanah, Jewish state, strong Jewish state, we have a ticket. It's a ticket. And we have to support that ticket. And we have to make sure that ticket, and you're correct about security. At the dinner on the night we did have tonight, we did not. And that was something we should have taken care of. But what I'm saying is we have the ticket. Help us protect that ticket, and Bezrat Hashem will win. Again, we come up here and take some literature. This is just examples that we do. Our main website is jewishisrael.org. And please help financially to Manhigut Yehudit, whatever you can will be accepted. Thank you, and the Shana Haba Yerushalayim.
No, I don't read the